Well, for more on that, we're now joined by historian, political analyst, and author Mr. Marcus Papadopoulos, who's joining us from the British capital, London. Mr. Papadopoulos, welcome to the program. Countries are now rushing to help Turkey and specifically Syria at this point, but the unlawful sanctions imposed on the Arab country by the United States have complicated international efforts to assist the Syrians who've been devastated by these quakes. Why? Give us an overall perspective of how devastating and how criminal, in other words, these sanctions are at this point in time, and why would countries even have to request that the United States remove the sanctions in this time of need?
Well, through its sanctions on Syria, the Western ruling elites are exacerbating and prolonging the agony of Syrians who have been directly affected by the earthquake that struck their country. And there are two reasons to account for why the West, by which I mean the American, British and EU ruling elites, will not rescind either temporarily or permanently their sanctions on Syria. Firstly, the West is punishing the Syrian people for having defied the West's objective of attempting to overthrow the Syrian government and turn Syria into a pro-Western country, which would have been a paradise for terrorist organizations such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And secondly, the Western ruling elites, despite having lost the war in Syria, are nonetheless attempting to cripple Syria so that one day the West could be in a position again to instigate a war in Syria, which could result in the West achieving its objective, namely the overthrow of the Syrian government and the replacement of the Syrian government by a pro-Western one. And I think also we need to be aware that beneath the warm smiles, friendly handshakes, and air of joviality about the Western ruling elites lies dark and deadly personalities who have no moral compunction whatsoever of waging wars against entire races, and also in continuing to inflict pain and suffering on people. After all, the Western ruling elites had no moral compunction in dropping depleted uranium on Serbs and Iraqis in 1999 and in 2003 respectively, which resulted in massive increases in cancer rates in both Serbia and Iraq. And in regard to the West's sanctions on Syria, these are completely illegal. There is no justification for them, either in the UN Charter or in international law in general. And also, it must be said that whilst the West is rushing ahead to help Turkish people who have been harmed by the earthquake, the only reason why the West is doing that is not out of concern or love for the Turkish people. No, it is because Turkey is a member of NATO and Turkey is in the West's sphere of influence. If Turkey was not a member of NATO, if Turkey was not in the West's sphere of influence, then undoubtedly, because of its geographical significance, the West not only would have sanctions on Turkey, but would also do nothing to help alleviate the pain of the Turkish people at a time when an earthquake has struck Turkey. So that is the reality of the Western ruling elites. And again, people should not be surprised by that. The Western ruling elites do not even care about their own people. And we see that because of how The war which is going on in Ukraine, which the West is fueling, is having a devastating impact on people's lives in America, in Britain, and in the European Union. Millions of people have fallen into poverty, and yet the Western ruling elites care nothing for that.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Historian, political analyst, and author Marcus Papadopoulos joining us from London. Thank you for your comment.